So guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. So guys, we've got some big news. We mentioned this on the live stream yesterday, but I definitely think a video was necessary to explain this situation. So Dmitry Bivol has come out and said that he'd be willing to go down to 168 to fight Canelo for the undisputed super middleweight championship of the world. Now Dmitry Bivol probably looks at this and thinks, you know, I beat Canelo. And what do I really have to gain by fighting Canelo again in the rematch at 175? He said something on the line that I want it to be fair and I want it to be on my terms as well. Now, I'm not sure he's talking financial, because financially, I think the fact that he beat Canelo, he was always going to get paid well. But I think he's looking at it from a legacy standpoint, because Dmitry Bivol only holds one belt in the light heavyweight division. Dmitry Bivol is also somebody that has said in the past that he's willing to go down to 168 and he can make 168. And he's probably looking at it from a legacy point of view. If I can go down to 168 and beat Canelo, I'll have all the belts. That is a very, very big incentive for him to do that. I don't think he's talking financial, that he wants things on his term. I think he's talking from a legacy, because financially, if he was going to beat Canelo, he was always going to get a bigger payday the second time round. So I don't think he's talking financially. A lot of people saying, well, Bivol's, you know, now because he beat Canelo. Of course, when someone beats them, they have more leverage. But I don't think it's the money. I think it's the fact that when he says terms, I think he wants things where it'll benefit him, because he's only got one belt at light heavyweight. As good as win as it was, he was fighting for his own belt and he was defending his belt. So he's probably thinking, if I can go back down to super middleweight and fight this guy, I'm at a massive advantage here. Like, you know, I can win 4 belts. I beat him pretty easy. Would the fight be any different at 168? You'd have to say it comes down to how well Dmitry Bivol makes weight, because you'd have to say Dmitry Bivol would be a massive favorite to beat Canelo. Now, the only way you'd say that if going down to 168 is the fact that if does Dmitry Bivol drain himself, and does that give Canelo a better chance? I don't think Canelo Alvarez would be wanting to fight Dmitry Bivol at 168. I'll tell you why. Firstly, Canelo Alvarez puts himself at a risk. If Bivol does box the way he did at 175 and beats Canelo again, Canelo loses all his belts. What will Canelo have left? Nothing. A guy would just come down to his weight and beat him. He loses all of his belts, right? Credibility gone, reputation damaged, you know, because now that guy's come down to your weight and beat you at your weight, right? This way, you know, excuses, he's too big. I went to his weight class, he was too big, he was a very skilled fighter, fair enough. Even then, it still hurts Canelo. The fact that Canelo's so great and Canelo's so big and people view Canelo the way they view Canelo, any loss, doesn't matter if he goes and fights Usyk, would hurt his career, would hurt his legacy. Do you see where I'm coming from? Because that's just how great Canelo is and how he's perceived. But for me, it's just too much of a risk. From a credibility point of view, comes down and loses all your belts. You've got nothing. You've got literally nothing. A guy's just taking everything away from you at your own weight class. And the other thing is, if Canelo goes and fights Bivol at 168 and beats him, just say, Canelo ain't getting no credit for that. People will say he was drained. So Canelo literally gets no credit for fighting Bivol at 168, because people will just make excuses that Bivol wasn't right, Bivol was drained. So Canelo has literally nothing to gain from fighting Bivol at 168, nothing. He's just defending his world titles. He's defending his world titles. I can see why Bivol wants to go down to 168. He gets a chance to become undisputed, create legacy, become a great, you know, become an undisputed champion. What does he gain by fighting Canelo again in a rematch? Yeah, he gains a lot of money, which obviously is important. He gains a lot of dough, which obviously is a huge thing. But in terms of a legacy, he'll just be defending his belt again. That's what I think Dmitry Bivol wants. Dmitry Bivol wants to go down to 168 and actually challenge himself and want to win those belts that he's got at 168. I think that's what Bivol wants to do. Would the fight be more competitive at 168? I don't know. I don't know, because the fight at 175 wasn't that competitive. If Bivol, look, Canelo's a great fight. I don't want to make it about, well, if Bivol is drained and that gives Canelo, because Canelo is a great fighter. But the way the first fight went, it's hard to see how Canelo wins the fight. But if Bivol is some kind of handicapped in a way where he's struggling to make weight or whatever, that could give Canelo a chance to beat him. But what credit does Canelo get from beating Bivol at 168? He gets no credit. He gets no credit. Do you see what I'm saying? What does he gain? And I don't think Canelo's going to want to do that. I don't think Canelo's going to... Firstly, Canelo's got too much to lose. Right? And secondly, if he beats Bivol, he's not going to get the credit, because people will say, well, he beat you at 175. You've dragged him down at 168, even though it might be Dmitry Bivol that wants to fight at 168. Canelo's not going to get credit for it. So for me, I think if Canelo wants to rematch Bivol, it has to happen at 175. It can't happen at 168. Because if he beats Bivol, he's not going to get any credit. Also, if he loses to Bivol at 168, oh my goodness, it's disastrous for Canelo. It's absolutely disastrous. D-Money actually mentioned this on the live stream yesterday. He said that if Canelo loses to Bivol again at 175, yeah, he can go back to 168 and defend his titles. He gets beat by Bivol at 168. That could be it. Do you know what I mean? Where does Canelo go? So this is the point I'm trying to make. Canelo Alvarez needs to fight Dmitry Bivol at 175 if he's fighting Dmitry Bivol again. He may decide to go down another route. The way that fight played, I may say, I don't want to fight Bivol. You know, I'll take another option. Maybe in a few years we'll come back and try to rematch this guy. But, as of right now, let me go and clean up at 168, and then we'll see what the future holds. That's what I think I think that's what he should do. Leave 175 alone. But I think the competitive nature of Alvarez won't allow him to do that. I think he'll go for Bivol again. So he's got to be very smart in what he does, because I think fighting Bivol at 168 is not going to be beneficial for Canelo. I think he's got everything to lose, nothing to gain. If he fights him at 175, loses again, okay, he can come back down to his weight and defend his world titles at 168. They're not going to take that off him. But he fights Bivol at 168 and loses to Bivol, Canelo's got too much to lose at that point. In my opinion, I just think if he's going to rematch Bivol, it has to happen at 175. Has to. For the fact that he's not going to get any credit if he beats Bivol at 168. And if he loses to Dmitry Bivol at 168, that's him. For me, where does he go from there? Where does he go from there? He's not a world champion. He's been beat at 175. Now he's been beat for his world titles, undisputed world titles at 168. I just think it's not a wise move. I don't think it's a wise move. I think Canelo would have too much to lose in that situation. At least Canelo's got a fallback if he loses to Bivol again at 175. He's got no fallback if he loses to Bivol at 168. Yeah, because Bivol might go back to 175, but you've just been beat. Then the belts become vacant and they become, Canelo might as well defend his undisputed titles and set some kind of record of 10 defenses of your undisputed championships. Do something like that. But I don't feel like fighting Bivol at 168 is a smart move at all. I think it could be disastrous. So for me, if Canelo wants to rematch Bivol, and I think they should sit down and think about that, because I don't see how Canelo beats Bivol. I genuinely don't, and I can't believe I'm saying that, because I'm such a big fan, firstly, of Canelo. Secondly, Canelo's so good, but the way that fight played out, it's hard to see how Canelo wins that fight. I'm sorry to say, and some of you might not be happy with me saying this, but I have to say, I don't see how he'll win the second fight. Bivol is so big and he's such a good boxer. It's be so difficult for Canelo to break that guy down. And what Canelo would have to do to win, I don't know whether he has the physical capacity to do that, because it seems to me he gasses out. And the work rate and the output that he'd need in order to beat someone like Bivol would have to be very high. And I'm not sure he's got that in him. So, for me, I think a Dmitry Bivol rematch should be... I think he should leave it alone. But at the end of the day, that's just me thinking from fans' point of view, that doesn't want to see Canelo lose again. But at the same time, Canelo's looking at it from a competitive sportsman's point of view, and they want challenges. The best sportsmen want challenges. They want to do things that the public say they can't do, or the boxing fans say they can't do. Canelo Alvarez wants to prove to the fans that I can beat this guy. We might not think now he can beat him, but he wants to prove he can. Do you see what I mean? So he's going to take the fight. I don't see Canelo not taking the fight, and I actually don't see Canelo not taking the fight at 175. I think he's going to want the fight at 175. I don't think he's going to want the fight at 168 at all. I think he's going to want the fight at 175, and he's going to want to beat him at 175. Do I think that's a smart move? Probably not. But Canelo's at the stage of his career where he's got nothing to lose, in the sense that, yeah, his legacy could be tarnished, and that'll, you know, when a guy like Canelo Alvarez, or the level of Canelo Alvarez loses, as I said earlier, it's going to hurt his legacy regardless, because, you know, Canelo Alvarez was being talked about as one of the greats. So as soon as you lose, it doesn't, you know, your legacy will be tarnished. Now, when Canelo's career is all done, he'll still be an all-time great. He'll still be a great. He'll still be viewed as a great, in my opinion. You know, but as of right now, because he's still fighting, it hurts him. You know, people are now saying he's not the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, which he's probably not now, because he's lost. You know, pound-for-pound is what of right now. And if you lose a fight, look, sometimes people go off the pound-for-pound list for a bad performance, even though they win. You know, remember, like I said to you guys, the pound-for-pound #1 spot, which Canelo had, one bad performance, and we got that against Bivol, you disappear from #1 spot. He's no longer a #1 pound-for-pound because he lost. And that's how difficult it is. And the reason why I feel sorry for Canelo, if you look at all the guys on the pound-for-pound list, bar Usyk, and I'd even go as far as saying Usyk fought Joshua, but Joshua's not as good as Bivol, in my opinion. I know Joshua was a unified champion and the size difference was massive, but I think Bivol is a better boxer, even though Canelo fought a guy that was way bigger than him. But Bivol, for me, is better than Joshua in terms of his boxing ability, knowing how to use his size. You know, I just think he's a much assured boxer in his weight class. So I don't really think the other pound-for-pound guys are fighting the competition that Canelo's fighting, so it's almost unfair to move Canelo down, but that's just the nature of the beast and how hard it is. That's just how hard it is to stay pound for pound, because when you're fighting top tier competition like Canelo, you're going to take losses. I said there's no such thing as an invincible fighter. If you fight enough good competition, you're going to lose, guys. Simple as that. There's no such thing as an invincible fighter. If you fight enough top tier opposition in their prime, you will lose. I promise that. That's with any fighter, because there will be a style out there that will beat you. Canelo does struggle against those type of styles. You just have to be good enough to execute it and be able to box him the way Bivol did. But there's not many guys that are that good. There's not many guys that can box like that and have the strength and power, you know, not to be affected by Canelo's power shots. Look at the state of Bivol's arm. Look, that just shows how powerful Canelo is. Bivol's a massive guy, and Canelo was ruining his arm. His arm was messed, like his arm was red. He showed after the fight, his whole arm was really red and bruised. But that's what I'm saying to you guys, man. You know, Canelo for me is a great fighter. But sometimes we build people up to be like almost unbeatable, and there's no such thing. Floyd Mayweather was he was a genius. He was a genius not just in the ring, but outside the ring, the way he was able to market himself and do what he did. But Canelo Alvarez, for me, he's been fighting too many top-tier fighters. You know, people say Billy Joe and Callum Smith, these are bums, these are this. No, they're not. They're good fighters. Canelo was just exceptional, and he beat them. Bivol was just Bivol was bigger than Canelo, but he was also a very exceptional fighter. Hence why he was able to totally neutralize Canelo. That was a brilliant performance by Dmitry Bivol. I didn't think Dmitry Bivol could perform like that. Even though I thought it was a tough fight and I thought it was a fight that Bivol could win, I didn't think he would win like that. I thought he'd have to come through a lot more adversity to beat someone like Canelo than he did. And to be honest, the fight was pretty comfortable for him. Don't make me wrong, Canelo at times was pushing him, but it was pretty comfortable. It was pretty an easy win for him, really. When you think about who he was in the ring with, it was pretty comfortable for him. And I don't think it should have been that comfortable when you're going up against Canelo, but it was pretty comfortable. He did it pretty comfortably. And a lot of people are saying, well, oh, Bivol's just a better boxer. That's nonsense. The size played a big part. It played a big part. Bivol knew how to use that size. Kovalev was giving Canelo all sorts of trouble, but the difference is Kovalev was past his best, so Canelo was able to break him down and get to him. Bivol's in his prime. There's a difference. The size plays a big part. Oh, it wasn't about the size. Of course it's about the size, because Bivol's a good boxer, but he was able to use his size and frame to outbox Canelo. It's not the fact that someone's a better boxer. It's like he was able to use his size and frame to outbox him. That's a big advantage. He used his size to outbox him. You know, so I don't know what people mean when they say, yeah, he's just a better boxer. No, it's not nothing to do with the size. It's just that Bivol is a better boxer. That's nonsense. Bivol used that size effectively. But if he didn't have that size, he would have struggled. It would have been a lot harder for him, because he wouldn't have had the reach. He wouldn't have been able to dictate the pace from the outside. He wouldn't have been able to control Canelo from the outside if they were both the same size. This is what a lot of people like. A lot of people just look. Canelo's lost the fight. Bivol was the clear winner. But don't start diminishing Canelo. I hate when people start diminishing other fighters just to make themselves feel satisfied that he's lost. Yeah, he lost the fight. Canelo lost the fight. Fair and square. But that doesn't mean Canelo's not a great fighter all of a sudden. And some of you are saying, oh, I told you so. He was overrated. He was a hype job. He was never that good. You know, that's not the case. He just came up against a bigger, great boxer. And a great big man beats a great little man. That's just the case. Kovalev was a great big man, but he was a faded great big man. So Canelo was able to get to him and knock him out. But let's not forget that fight. Canelo didn't look that brilliant in that fight. You know, so for me, if Canelo is to take the rematch, I think it should be at 175. Personally, I think he should probably stay away from Bivol. But I don't think he will. I think he'll go straight to Bivol. But we'll have to wait and see. But look, whatever Canelo does, we're gonna stay tuned. We're gonna obviously want to know what he does. But I just don't see Canelo not taking the rematch. I think he would want to avenge that loss. I think it's gonna hurt him. I think the next couple of weeks are gonna be very difficult for Canelo Alvarez, because, like I said, he lives this. He's dedicated to boxing. So I personally think the rematch will happen. But can he win it? I'm not sure. I don't think so, but we'll have to wait and see. Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Leave your opinions, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.